Thank you. A very warm welcome. Coming up on tonight's BBC London. A Met firearms officer, as we've been hearing, is cleared of the murder of Chris Cabba during a police stop in Streatham 2 years ago. The head of the Met says he's concerned about the impact of the case on the capital.
The more we crush the spirit of good officers, the less they can fight crime. That risks London becoming less safe.
Meanwhile, Mr Cabba's family have said they're devastated by the verdict. We look at the huge impact of this case. Also tonight, residents are evacuated from an East London tower block after a fire caused by a lithium battery. A section of the Thames towpath near Kew collapses into the water, leaving a whole stretch impassable. And
love it. My mission is to try and uplift everyone that I speak to.
we meet the DJ spreading positivity live streaming on London streets to his 500,000 followers. Hello and good evening to you. We start with more on the news that a Met firearms officer has been cleared of the murder of Chris Cabba, who was shot dead during a police stop in Streatham 2 years ago. He was unarmed. The jury at the Old Bailey took just 3 hours to reach a verdict in the trial of Martin Blake. The Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, earlier said he was concerned about the lack of support for firearms officers and the impact that could have on the safety of Londoners. Tonight, the Cabba family say they are devastated by the verdict. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Sonia Jessup, has more.
The police shooting of Chris Cabba left a family in grief, and many in London's black communities demanding answers.
In communities across London, what happened to Chris feels very personal. They understand and feel the pain our family is going through.
Chris Cabba was shot in the head through the windscreen of his car in Streatham 2 years ago. His family spoke to Panorama about their loss.
Nobody has the power to take someone's life. No one.
The police came, said that Chris was killed. It was all the world was collapsed on me. How?
A year after the shooting, a Met firearms officer, later named as Martin Blake, was charged with murder. In response, hundreds of officers stepped back from firearms duty. The Met said many were worried about what it meant for them and their families. At the trial this month, the jury was shown footage of police following the Audi being driven by Chris Cabba. It had been linked to a shooting in Brixton the previous night.
Doors! Oh, police! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!
Police body cam footage shows the moment officers stopped his car, blocking him in with their vehicles. The court heard how Chris Cabba tried to ram his way past, driving backwards and forwards before the shot is fired. Martin Blake told the court he'd not intended to kill him. He said, "I had a genuine belief that there was an imminent threat to life. I thought one or more of my colleagues was about to die." But prosecutor Tom Little KC said Chris Cabba had not posed a threat to life and suggested Martin Blake may have been angry, frustrated and annoyed. Today, a jury found him not guilty of Chris Cabba's murder. Across London, the case has raised fresh concerns over how black communities are policed and over the confidence of firearms officers on the front line. In Croydon, days after the shooting, prayers and meetings were held over fears difficult work to rebuild relationships would be damaged. The Met is trying to restore trust. Many will be asking what today's verdict means now. Sonia Jessup, BBC London.
And Sonia, our Home Affairs correspondent, joins me now. A reaction from both the head of the Met and Chris Cabba's family to this hugely significant verdict. Sonia, if I can ask you first, what did the Met Commissioner say?
That's right. Well, so Mark Rowley, the Met Commissioner, actually took up his role just a week after the fatal shooting of Chris Cabba in September 2022. And he's given a statement outside New Scotland Yard this afternoon, paying tribute to the huge personal and professional sacrifice he said Martin Blake had paid, making what he called a split-second decision because he believed that his colleagues and London were in danger. It was necessary to protect them. He said it had been an incredibly difficult time for Martin Blake and his family, and he'd acted with professionalism and dignity throughout. He also recognised the loss to Chris Cabba's family and friends, but he went on to defend the role of firearms officers in London and the work they do. Have a listen to what he said.
Any fatal use of force understandably prompts huge concern amongst communities, particularly in black communities where trust in policing is low. There remains much for us to do to strengthen confidence in our service, and we know incidents like this place further strain on already challenged relationships. No police officer is above the law, but we have been clear that the system holding police to account is broken. I worry about the lack of support officers face for doing their best. But most of all, I worry for the public. The more we crush the spirit of good officers, the less they can fight crime. That risks London becoming less safe.
That was the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley. But in the last hour, we have heard from Chris Cabba's family, haven't we?
That's right. They've released a statement, and I understand in the last hour, they've spoken outside court.
Today, we are devastated. The not guilty verdict leaves us with a deep pain of injustice, adding to the unbearable sorrow we felt since Chris was killed. No family should endure the unimaginable grief we have faced since Chris was stolen from us. And this decision shows his life and many others like him doesn't matter to the system. Our son deserved better. The acquittal of Martin Blake isn't just a failure for our family, but for all those affected by police violence.
That was the family of Chris Cabba, as you say, outside of court. Where does the verdict in this hugely significant case, as we've said, leave us?
I think it leaves the Met with a huge challenge, both in trying to restore the trust of Londoners and also in its leadership of frontline police officers. I mean, as we've heard, in many of London's black communities, the police shooting of Chris Cabba has been felt very personally and very painfully, and the not guilty verdict today is not going to dispel many of those concerns. In fact, for some, it will actually deepen them. At the same time, the Commissioner, as we've heard, is concerned about the confidence of his firearms officers. And we've had a statement from the Mayor tonight, which I think reflects some of this. He says it's important that the case was properly and thoroughly investigated. So he says he respects the jury's decision. He pays tribute to the work that frontline firearms officers do. But he says he understands the anger, pain and fear that Chris Cabba's death has caused. He goes on to say there's clearly still a wider lack of trust in the police, particularly within the black community, that needs to be addressed.
OK, for now, Sonia, thank you. I know you have been following this case. Well, you can also search In Court on BBC Sounds to listen to our podcast, which has been following the trial and features all the arguments, witness testimony and behind-the-scenes details. There's also lots more background on the BBC News website. You're watching BBC London. Plenty more to come for you before 7, including...
Love it. My mission is to try and uplift everyone that I speak to.
We meet the DJ spreading positivity live streaming on London streets. A fire that led to the evacuation of around 30 residents from a tower block in East London this morning was caused by the failure of a lithium battery. Dozens of firefighters were sent to the scene in Queen's Road, West in Plaistow. One person was taken to hospital, but no one was seriously hurt. With more details, here's our reporter, Nikki Ford.
A frightening sight to wake up to for people living in Scott House.
Residents capture the moment a 3-bedroom flat on the 10th floor catches fire and appears to rapidly get worse. At around 8 o'clock this morning, the police and London Fire Brigade arrived to tackle it, where it took 70 firefighters and 10 fire engines to get the fire under control.
It was quite scary, I would say, because I was just in the house and at that time the kids were getting ready to school. I have to actually drag them out of the house because, number one, I don't know if the fire is coming from the top of the building or the bottom of the building, so it was quite a daunting moment.
2 men who were in the flat were treated at the scene by the London Ambulance Service. Around 40 other residents were sent to a nearby community centre, some still in their dressing gown and slippers and clearly in a state of shock. Shipper lives on the 13th floor above the flat that caught fire. His was one of 4 floors that were heavily damaged. He told me he could see the clothes on his balcony getting burnt.
Yeah, I got very scared. I have to say, I got very scared. I never saw anything like that. I never experienced anything like that in my life. But this is very scary. And when you have your own family with you, let's just say you got a child, you got a pregnant wife, then it is very scary because more than yourself, you're going to think about your wife and your kids.
Well, as for the cause of the fire, the London Fire Brigade were quickly able to determine it was caused by a lithium battery, the debris of which was found in the flat. And they've been called out to 131 fires so far this year caused by lithium batteries.
People were gradually being sent back to their homes once their properties were checked to make sure they were safe. But for those whose homes are badly damaged, that could take weeks.
I know a lot of people have lost their properties, personal belongings. I know how difficult and challenging that can be. But the most important thing is no life was lost.
Relief then, as it could have been so much worse. But concern remains at how quickly the fire spread. Nikki Ford, BBC London.
Meanwhile, the London MP and Housing Minister, Rushanara Ali, has stepped down from her work on the government's response to the Grenfell inquiry and the building safety crisis. It follows an investigation into a building industry networking event co-chaired by the head of a firm involved in the refurbishment of the tower. Our reporter Aisha Baksh is here with more. What do we know about this?
Well, Rushanara Ali has been the local London MP in East London for many years. And when the new government was elected, she was given a ministerial job in the Department for Housing, Communities and Local Government. Now, her brief covered several housing issues, including the Grenfell Tower inquiry and building safety. But before she became a minister and while in the job, she was given free hospitality to attend an industry networking event in France. And that event was co-chaired by the very senior chief executive of a company called Saint-Gobain. Now, they are the parent company, or they were rather, the parent company of Celotex, who made the flammable insulation that was put on Grenfell Tower. And during the recent Grenfell inquiry, the company were found to have rigged a fire test and deliberately put out misleading marketing. Now, at this event were, over the years, many different ministers, including Yvette Cooper, politicians from the Conservative Party. But of course, for Rushanara Ali, this was a conflict of interest and also disrespectful to the families and survivors of the Grenfell Tower fire, for whom she's been working with. So following a Sunday Times newspaper investigation, she stepped down from her duties, saying that she understands that relationships between ministers and the community of Grenfell are essential, but perception matters, and therefore the safety portfolio is transferred to another minister. Now, of course, it's not just Grenfell inquiry, it's also the building safety crisis. And earlier I spoke to somebody involved with organisations dealing with that.
They needed a much quicker response post-Grenfell, and they needed to start the journey of improvement much quicker. So now we're at a situation where we're 7 years beyond the Grenfell tragedy, and we're still scratching around trying to find solutions to problems. The minister moving on, this really isn't helping towards, in that regard, of actually making sure that people that are at risk at the moment their levels of risk are reduced, and ultimately they're given a clean bill of health, that their homes are safe.
Well, the company Saint-Gobain I contacted in France, who've told me that Pierre-André Chalander has now stepped down from that event. I spoke to a local community group in North Ken who were due to meet with the minister this week. That meeting was cancelled, and they simply told me it is not a good look.
OK. Aisha, many thanks for that update. Aisha Baksh. A coroner has recommended there should be greater regulation around the number of dogs that can be walked in public. It follows an inquest into the death of a dog walker from Croydon who was killed last year while out with 8 dogs. She lost control and suffered fatal bites to the neck and chest. Matt Graveling has this report.
Natasha Johnston was 28 and lived in Croydon. Her family say she was comfortable around all animals, but it was with dogs she spent most of her time, and walking them was her job. But in January of last year, when Natasha was out with 8 dogs in Caterham, she lost control. A walker found her body surrounded by 3 dogs. She had a number of bites to her neck, and today an inquest heard these wounds took her life. Natasha Johnston's family were not in court today, but 2 of her friends were, and they broke down in tears as the events of that tragic day were read aloud. PC Christopher Hale, a dog handler for 23 years, said there's currently no national regulations about the number of dogs somebody can walk in public. The senior coroner here, Richard Travers, said that is a concern, and he will now prepare a prevention of future deaths report for the Home Office.
We definitely believe that there shouldn't be any more than 3 dogs per person, because if you get a pack of dogs and then you come across another pack, depending on the different sizes and types of dogs, and if it's maybe a dog walker that doesn't know the dog that well, that could be a problem.
This is the viewpoint at Gravelly Hill in Caterham, where Natasha Johnston was walking the 8 dogs when she was attacked. Following the attack, all 8 dogs were seized by police for forensic testing. 6 of them were returned to their owners. 2 of them, Natasha Johnston's own dogs, a Labradoodle and an American XL Bully, were put to sleep. Since Natasha's death, American XL Bullies have been added to a list of banned dogs. They must now be muzzled and on a lead in public. Mick Doran runs the London Dog Walking Company.
There should be some sort of licensing. I don't think that somebody should be able to go on a park or in a park, certainly in a city, and just open their van doors and walk 10 or 15 dogs on their own.
Today, the coroner said what's happened in Surrey is a national problem. Once his report is complete, it will then be up to the government on whether dog numbers will be restricted on all public walks. Matt Graveling, BBC London.
Next, imagine walking or jogging on a popular Thames route only to see the towpath collapse right in front of you and fall into the river, leaving it impassable. That's what one runner saw near Kew Gardens on Saturday following a morning of heavy rain. Well, Jim Weeble has been speaking to him and has the story.
It isn't what you expect to see when you're taking a trip down a picturesque path along the Thames. It's a section of the Thames towpath between Kew and Richmond on the south side on Saturday. Water cascading out down from the land next to the path in a powerful torrent. Edward Ware, who jogs this way often, was on his way along the path when it collapsed in front of him.
I quickly came to a sudden stop, and then I saw another lady on the opposite side who was kind of bewildered and kind of shocked and taken aback herself. So her and I were kind of just saying, hold tight, stop, gesturing to each other. And yeah, I mean, it took a few minutes to process just because of the amount of water gushing.
The floodplain was completely flooded all the way up to those rugby posts up there, across the meadow. This ditch was absolutely heaving. The water was up to about there.
Approaching the collapsing path from the other side was Ed Baker.
Quite a few dog walkers, cyclists, other runners were saying, stop, it's collapsed. And we thought, oh, it won't be that bad because there's puddles everywhere. It's quite an old towpath. And then what we realised, we persevered, we went on and saw it. And when we got there, it was absolutely way more than I'd envisaged. It was like 3.5 metres, 4 metres long, probably about 3 metres depth. The whole towpath had been washed away. And as we were there, another couple of runners came up behind us and we just kind of looked in awe at what was happening. Power of Mother Nature.
So if you did want to have a walk along the Thames towpath just by Kew Gardens, you'll find that this is now as far as you can go. There's security here as well, 24 hours a day. And this is a busy commuter route. We've seen lots of people on bikes coming up here and finding they can go no further. Today, engineers from Richmond Council were assessing what happened here, while one expert has raised concerns about the effects of increasingly intense rainfall.
It raises questions about the sort of structural integrity of things like towpaths and what we need to be looking at going forward with an ever-increasing, unfortunately, wetter-looking climate.
How long it will take to reinstate the towpath is unclear, but it's unlikely to be any time soon. Jim Weeble, BBC London.
Now, it's been quite a year for a giant of triathlon, Lewisham's Alex Yee. This is him winning gold at the Paris Olympics this summer. And yesterday, he added a world triathlon title for the first time at an event in Spain. We had to ask him, how did he feel and just how thrilled was he to clinch that crown?
It's beyond my wildest dreams, if I'm being honest, to be able to call myself a world champion and an Olympic champion in the same year. So massively proud, and yeah, massively proud to do it for Lewisham and South London. Being a sportsman is no coincidence. It's the fact you have facilities around you. It's the fact you have that small village which it takes to become an athlete, and that starts with, I guess, my parents, and I'm amazingly lucky to have them, but also to have the facilities and the coaches and the sports clubs which were available to me within South London, and that was something I was really, really lucky to have. When I get back, it will be great to go back home. I was able to share the moment here with my family, but I'd love to be able to go back to my home tri club in Crystal Palace, and then also my home club Kent AC in Ladywell as well, and celebrate the end of this year, because it's been a really, really special one. And yeah, I'd love to share it with them and the guys who have helped me from the very start and believed in me.
Congratulations to Alex, so talented. Talking of which, I want you to meet online DJ Ashley Gordon, who's on a mission to spread positivity to any Londoner around, going around the capital with his decks and camera and live streaming on social media to his 500,000 followers. He's making quite an impact on the Londoners he meets along the way. Check this out.
Nothing but positive vibes. So my name's Ashley and I am a live streamer. Once I've set up, I'm ready to go, and I hit that live button. It's all about interacting with the people that are on TikTok. Romy! Go on, Romy! As well as trying to interact with everyone that is out on the street. Are we dancing together? Can we dance together? We play music that people like, so things that are trending. We go back to the nostalgic music as well. So I'm from Tottenham, born and bred. And prior to live streaming, I was a sales manager at a FTSE 250 company. After COVID, I became a bit disengaged with my job. I decided to do something different. And my kids said, oh, look, give TikTok a try. And I was like, that's for kids, you're crazy. But I took their advice, and really the rest is history.
And Saturday, we're going to be at Brixton.
For me, DJing runs in the family. My dad's a DJ, my uncles are DJs. Music's always been around me. My mission is to try and uplift everyone that I speak to, and to invite other creatives to come along and perform, to showcase their talent.
It's always useful to be able to perform, like practice, dealing with the nerves, I guess. It's very nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. And obviously, yeah, hopefully people can find out about my music, about me, and maybe, you know, become a fan.
So when I'm outside DJing and performing, there are many challenges, having to travel to locations, to wheel the trolley and all the equipment to where it needs to go. Issues with coverage, you're dealing with people on the street, and it's having that energy and that mental strength to deal with some of that. I perform in Wood Green, in Brixton, King's Cross, Brighton, Stratford. As a live streamer, I definitely do make a good living. Some months are difficult, some months are fantastic. But the reality is I do make more money than what I used to in my previous role. It is a challenge, it's every day. There's no holiday, there's no sick pay, and for the content that I'm trying to make, it isn't easy. And I just want to say you're all more than welcome. So you can find out where I'm going to be by checking out my social media channels. Come and interact. Let's make some positive memories.
Isn't Ashley great? Join in if you see him. Let's see if the positivity extends to the weather forecast. Corsa joins us. Of course, you're always uplifting, but what about the weather?
Oh, well, some positive weather ahead, so that's the good news. Yes, it has extended to the weather. Thank you, Riz. Good evening. But today there was some rain out there across the southeast, and for the rest of us, quite a cloudy picture out there. This scene captured by one of our weather watchers of the Chelsea embankment. You can see the Battersea power station behind, so quite a cloudy day, and some of us did see some outbreaks of rain. We had this waving weather front, mainly across more southeastern parts, and this rain is going to continue to clear further southeastwards as we head through to this evening. And for the next few days, well, there is a lot of dry weather around. Not completely dry, there will be some showers too, and it will still be quite mild by day. And there'll also be some mist and fog around at night. It's later on in the week. By Friday, it will become a bit more unsettled with some outbreaks of rain once more and some stronger winds. But for the time being, we're seeing that rain clearing the southeast, and it will become drier this evening and overnight. There may be some patches of mist and fog overnight tonight across more southeastern parts, but clearer skies elsewhere, and temperatures, well, dipping down to around 6 or 7 Celsius with those light winds. So tomorrow morning, still a bit of mist and fog, perhaps in 1 or 2 spots, but a lot of dry weather, clear skies to start, a bright start. By the afternoon, a bit more in the way of cloud drifting in from the west, and there is the chance of some scattered showers. But a lot of dry weather and temperatures, well, reaching around the mid to high teens, so fairly mild, 15 to 17 Celsius. As we look ahead to tomorrow evening, then any showers will fade away. It becomes dry overnight with clear skies. But overnight tomorrow night, there'll be a greater chance of seeing some patches of mist and fog forming, some dense patches in places, and temperatures 7 to 8 Celsius. So a bit of a misty, murky start to Wednesday then. This mist and fog may be a bit slow to clear in some spots. By mid-morning, though, it should remain dry with some spells of brightness breaking through, 1 or 2 scattered showers, and still quite mild. So temperatures, again, around 15 to 17 Celsius. So then for Thursday as well, we are expecting some dry weather. It will become breezier though, and here's that system that will become a low pressure system by Friday, bringing with it some outbreaks of rain for the end of the week and into the weekend. So there is a lot of dry weather in the forecast over the next few days, still reaching the high teens by day, becoming more unsettled later in the week. That's your forecast.
I heard dry and brightness. Thank you very much, Corsa. More on that news today, that a jury at the Old Bailey has cleared the Met Police firearms officer Martin Blake of murdering 24-year-old Chris Cabba, who was shot dead during a police stop in Streatham 2 years ago, on our website. And you can hear the latest from the trial and reaction to the verdict in our podcast by searching In Court on BBC Sounds, or of course wherever you get your podcasts. For now though, from me and everyone on the team, thanks very much for watching. Do have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.